What do you do if you're not getting any traction? You're pitching and peddling, but nobody's buying. Well, there are 1,000 things you could do, but I'm going to talk about 3 of them. And no, giving up is not on this list. Don't do that. Quick side note, for this video, my example is from the perspective of a novelist, but the same concepts apply to a film, a series, a video game, whatever. So let's say you're a novelist and you're not interested in taking the self-publishing route. You want a publisher because you want the ability to distribute physical copies across the nation. That's totally understandable, a perfectly reasonable goal. But what if nobody's picking up your manuscript? You've sent query letters aplenty and not a single publisher has accepted. What do you do then? The first thing you can do is, well, put that book down and write another one. Maybe if you write another book, the publishers might like that one and go with it instead. That sounds disheartening, right? But it happens. Ted Dekker is an author that has written over 30 novels and sold 15 million copies. The first books he ever set out to write were called the Circle series. He tried for years to sell the first book, but no one wanted it. It was too high concept, too strange. So he set it aside and he wrote another series called The Martyr's Song. And then that sold. And then he wrote standalone novels like 3 and Blink, and those won awards. Once he had proven that he was able to write and sell his novels, then the Circle series was picked up, and they became bestsellers. Now, for a first-time novelist, that sounds heavy. Your first novel might be years of work that now has to be completely cast aside in order for you to create something new. That's pretty daunting. And I know several people who would rather keep writing query letters for several years until it works. But what if you can set it aside and publish it in another medium? Our second option is just that. If it's not working in one thing, produce it in something else. If no one buys your manuscript, do it in an audio drama format. If you then find your audience through the new medium, you can go back to writing novels and they will migrate. I'm working with a playwright who has written and produced several productions in his local community theaters, which is very hard to do at the independent level, by the way. Most theaters want to advertise plays that everybody's already heard of so that they can guarantee an audience for it. So to be an independent playwright and get your work on stage is no small feat. But for his productions that haven't been picked up, he's been adapting them into screenplays and films and ebooks. Now, instead of just being a playwright and an actor, he's also an author and a filmmaker as well. But if you are absolutely certain that your first book cannot possibly exist in any other medium, then our final option is to create other stories in anticipation of that book. What if you took the prologue and adapted that as a graphic novel? Or maybe you write the antagonist's backstory and make that a short film. I've said it on this channel before, and I'll keep saying it because it's like my whole thing. You need to look at your story as not just one thing, but a whole universe of things. In my story world that I'm developing, there are feature films and animated television series and console video games that I'm super excited to create. But before I can do that, I gotta make what I can independently first. And in doing so, I'm working my way towards being able to sell those things to production companies. And here's the part that I want to drive home today. The reason we talk about making it all a part of a connected universe is because we don't want people to just watch the movie. We want them to read the tie-in novel and play the board game as well. We want fans of one thing to be fans of all the things. I am a fan of Steven Spielberg, Edgar Wright, Luc Besson, but have I watched everything they've ever made? Absolutely not. While I have enjoyed their directorial styles and multiple projects that they've done, the incentive to migrate over to other projects entirely depends on the content of that project. A director that I love might make a film that doesn't necessarily interest me. But if I knew that every single Spielberg film was connected in some way and told a massive story in one narrative universe, I would watch the shit out of that. I may not have seen every film that he's made, but I have seen every Indiana Jones movie, and I'm very excited for the next one, directed by James Mangold. The incentive to watch it is high because I already know that I love the other entries in the franchise. The incentive to watch Bridge of Spies was very low, and I still have not seen it, even though I've enjoyed Spielberg's other films. So we can't rely on our names or our talent to sell our story. Every time we make something new, we could be potentially building a whole new audience from scratch. If our stories are interconnected, the audience from the previous entry in the series carries over. So if you want the best chance of people reading your book, watching your film, listening to your song, or playing your video game, you need to put it out there in as many different ways as you can. That sounds disheartening, right?
That sounds disheartening.
It is. Okay.
Nobody wants to play with a Charlie in the box. For the live action Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, of course.
Reindeer.
Fuck off.
The Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Circle series.
The Circle series. Hello, my name is Ted Decker and I'm here to sell the Circle series. That was good. But you talked like exclusively out of the corner of your mouth just now and it was really funny. You said, cast aside.
Cast aside. Cast aside. Fuck you.
See?
Cast aside.
I don't know why you're doing it like that.
We'll get it out now so that you're not laughing during the tape.
Okay. He does. Like a sentient raisin.
Hold for quos. I'm gonna text Shannon that later. Hold for quos.
God, that's so funny.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Ted Lasso and I'm from Kansas.